Okay, let's get started. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us today. We are kicking off our Talking Tech series and focusing on why Black representation matters in tech. We're thrilled to have you join us for this important discussion and the need for Black representation in the tech industry. Today's panel will explore some of the challenges Black professionals face and the opportunities that are there for greater inclusion and for us to be impactful in diversity and innovation in this sector in Nova Scotia. So leading us today, we have Otni Chinenere, who's a vibrant communicator, entrepreneur, and community leader based in Halifax, Nova Scotia. She's also the founder of Taura Communications, and she's passionate about empowering individuals to overcome communication barriers and express their ideas with confidence. So I'll hand it over to you, Otni, and we can get started. But just a few housekeeping items. If you would like to ask any questions, which we will have time for at the end, please feel free to pop your questions into the Q&A bar. And then if you have any commentary or resources or anything you'd like to share, you can put that into the chat bar and I'll just be monitoring it and trying to answer any questions if I can. There'll be a recording that you can watch later on. That will be available to you sometime in the afternoon. We'll send out an email. Otherwise, that's it for me. Over to you, Otni, and thank you so much for being here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vimbai. It's an absolute honor. Thank you so much, folks. It's an absolute honor to be here moderating today's panel, Breaking the Mold and Why Black Representation Matters in Tech, as Vimbai just said, and it is obviously presented to us by Digital Nova Scotia. So kudos to you, Digital Nova Scotia. Thank you so much for curating such an important conversation. This is not just going to be a conversation. It actually, I believe, it's a call to action, right? So Black professionals actually make up only 3% of Nova Scotia's tech industry. So that's more than a statistic. It's actually a reflection. It's a reflection of barriers. It's a reflection of the seen, unseen, that have kept the entire community from fully participating in one of the most influential industries of our time. And yet we know that innovation thrives on diversity. So we know that representation doesn't just open doors. It transforms industries, fuels economic growth, and it also sets the stage for future generations to see themselves in tech, not just as outsiders, but actual leaders, creators, and also decision makers. So today we are going to dive into why this representation obviously matters and how diverse backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives drive progress, and what we can do, as Vimbai said earlier, for a more inclusive, equitable tech sector. So I have the privilege of being joined by some incredible panelists who are not only breaking the mold, but are actually reshaping the future itself. I'm gonna go ahead and ask them to go ahead and also introduce themselves because we have decorum here. I'm going to go with ladies first. So Tinu, I'll let you take the stage here and please introduce yourself.
Hi, Otni, and hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for letting me go first. So my name is Tinu Brukanova, and I am CEO at Media Bonnet. We are a paid media agency who exist to help marketers deliver on the science and art of successful marketing campaigns. We've existed for about 14 years. I myself, I have worked in technology for about 18 years across software development and service delivery and business development and strategy for various sectors. So lovely to be here.
Thank you so much, Tino. My questions are already burning, so I'm just gonna make sure the other lovely panelists get an opportunity to introduce themselves. Martino.
Hi, I'm Martino DeLeon. I work at Ubisoft as a data analyst. Ubisoft's a big video game company. Originally from Halifax and from Beachville, Nova Scotia, and from Gibson Woods in the Valley.
Thank you so much, Martino. And Taddy?
Hi, everyone. My name is Toddy. I am a penetration tester at GoSecure. I've been with them for about a year. Previously, I was an application security engineer for a smaller company based in California. Yeah, and I'm based out of Texas in the United States.
Lovely to have you, Taddy. Okay, so without further ado, I'm just going to go right back to Tinu, and we're just going to go ahead and get the conversation started here. So, Tinu, you were just speaking about how you have actually been in the industry for 18 years. From the point of view of being a woman, what is it that we can do to get Black women in the industry, having so much time and experience within the industry? What would be some of the things that that you think we can do to get Black women in the tech industry?
Okay, we're gonna go for the difficult questions first.
Let's
So,
do it. We have to.
I think that, with the events of the last few months, we're at a pivotal moment where this question is really layered and difficult to answer because the language is now lost. The language is now fragmented when we talk about, diversity, inclusion of any segment of society, in some ways. So first off, I'd say that we're going to need to get back to the table, hopefully, in the near future, where we're talking about access for all communities, not just Black women, making sure there's Black men, there's Asian, Indigenous representation in tech. Um, I hope that we get back to that point where we're able to have an economic discussion about full participation of all diversity in the economy, because I think that that is the battle we currently have. So I just want to call that out, that we have a greater battle now and we've taken a few steps back and we're going to need to move forward. When it comes to women in tech, I also think because of where we are today, if you'd asked me this question 6 weeks, 8 weeks ago, it would have been different. But because of where we are today, I'm going to speak to resilience and the motive. So if you want to come into tech today as an individual, the motive has to now come from a place of love, because when you love something, it can't be taken away from you. And you're able to see through the experience and the ups and downs and climb that ladder truly and stay there. So I've been in this industry and it's tried to spit me out and I've come back in multiple times because I love it. So my journey, I can't speak for everyone, but my journey in tech, started when I was 16 and going to coding school. And it took, I loved it. It took, I didn't want to code and I was able to determine that, but I love the industry and I love applying tech to everything. And tech takes time. So I've been an odd kid all my life because it takes time to learn and code and learn to dive into something and hack the other thing and learn about a new way of applying technology to something else. So it takes time. So when we talk about Black women, um, we have to talk about, our love for solving problems, our love for resiliency and, finding new ways to do things, and the love for design and all the things that we could use tech for is the way I would approach it now, to build that love, to keep that resilience, to stay in the industry once you get a foot in. Bit of a complex approach, but I've really tried to think through what is beneficial to people who want to be in the tech industry. Figure out your why, right? And get in there. What can we as a community do to get more Black women in is to create those opportunities to learn. Like I said, I started at 16, right? So what are those opportunities to capture girls who are ready to learn? Are we getting them into those programs? Are we getting representation at that level? And are we getting representation across the board for people to cross over into tech? I'll leave it there for now. But yeah, those are my thoughts.
That is absolutely amazing. I think the number one thing obviously is the resilience piece there, right? And then everything else kind of like has to be your backing, but the resilience piece and understanding your why, because those two tie in together very well. Thank you so much for sharing. I do want to come back and kind of talk about, because you are CEO of Media Bonnet, and I really want to talk about what that kind of journey looked like. But I do want to hear from the other panelists as well. Martino, can you just discuss your experience? Because you are, first of all, that's amazing. It's a video game company. I'd really like to understand a little bit more about that and how your experience was re-immersing yourself into coding.
Re-immersing myself. Well, I started as a kid just digging into video games itself, going into the code. But I was about 19 years ago, I went to school for electronics because I wanted to work in electronics and do coding. But life got ahead of me, so I kind of moved away from the tech industry. I was working in the industry, but with life getting ahead and bills to pay and school to pay for, I had to go and work other jobs. So when I had some things going on and fell upon a great opportunity through the Matrix code to actually get back into tech and get back into coding. In the beginning, it was scary because it was a huge career change from doing construction to doing coding again, but it was trying to find my way. So when I had a couple conversations with a few family members, and they talked me into taking the chance and taking the risk. So it was finding the path, but at the same time trying to figure out, is this for me? Uh, and it was almost like riding a bike again, because I was scared at first that I wasn't going to remember anything, but as soon as I got on the bike, it was full speed ahead. And that so re-immersing myself was a bit easier with this opportunity, that the lucky opportunity I had with the Matrix Code, to be honest, uh, and the support system that I had through them. Like, they were very supportive. Not one to really like to talk about myself. I'm a bit too modest at times, so it was to have guys behind me pushing me and say, "Listen, it's not just you, it's the people behind you that are coming," and seeing that I watched a family member of mine do the same thing, and we were kind of on the same path back when we were kids, that that's not a place for us, right? Being a black male and just being a black person, you never seen as many people. And even today, like, I'm starting to see a lot more of us in the industry, but then I never thought that it was ever a possibility, knowing most of us are playing sports or doing construction, everybody around us doing stuff like that. They never thought that you would ever get into an opportunity to chase your dreams. And I fell upon an opportunity. I and took it and ran with it. So now it's trying to blaze a path for the younger generation coming up and seeing, okay, this is something that is possible, because that's a huge thing for any child, any person coming up, is seeing the possibilities that you can attain. So that, yeah, I don't know what else to say there.
No,
It's
that's
it's
good. I mean, I'm seeing something that ties in with Tinu there, where it's basically, the love for it, right? So even with you being able to re-immerse your, and you were saying it was just like riding a bike, like once you got back into it. So it's basically like the love for it, and it basically got you to where you are today. Thank you so much for sharing, and also just the importance, I can't stress enough how representation matters so much. So the youth being able to see you as a Black man and being able to know that it is a path that they can take just from seeing your experience and seeing the things that you are doing today. Thank you so much for sharing that, Martino. I'm going to definitely come back to you. I want to make sure we have a dib and dab of every aspect that we have of this panel. I want to make sure no stone goes unturned. Tadi, tell me what what a pen tester is before we get into other things here? You said you've been doing this for a year now, and how is that going? But first, enlighten us as to what exactly that is.
So penetration tester. A lot of people think we're talking about actual ballpoint pens or fountain pens. We're not talking about ink. We are security professionals. We are basically hackers. Um, I work for GoSecure. We do have a product, but my department is mostly consulting. So we work with different companies, try find vulnerabilities in their software and their systems, and report it to them before the bad guys do it. That's basically it. Just hacking.
Perfect. And so, how do you balance your identity as a Black professional with the pressures of working in a traditionally underrepresented field?
When I was thinking about answering this question, I wasn't too sure where to start, but I'd only recently moved to the West a few years ago.
Right.
So I'd never really seen color in a sense. And I hadn't thought about it until a friend mentioned it because I was applying for jobs, right? I was just spamming my resume everywhere and I wasn't getting any responses. And he probably said it's because of my name. And I was like, I hadn't thought about that. But then I had all the credentials and everything I needed, I guess, at that point. And so I did realize that, um, the field isn't necessarily as representative as it could be, but there's also not that many people that are interested in security, especially hacking, from what I've seen. Um, so I would say just trying to find the balance would be me taking out every other factor that could be impacting my ability to get into the industry. That is just being professional in general, um, being able to talk to people, being likable, being marketable, and above all things, security people love people that know how to actually do the work. So just being technically competent as well would be how I would do that, or how I've done that for the past few years. Just being able to find that balance. One of the things my current director always tells me is the fact that apart from doing my work on a day-to-day job, I'm also able to communicate with a clientele and voice what they need to do, what I need to do for whatever project I have. So just being able to eliminate every other variable so that they have no ground to stand on. Um, yeah, I think that's
That's good.
the
No,
best way to approach it.
absolutely. That's truly amazing. But I absolutely love the fact of you having to actually experience two things here. You actually having to experience the sort of like shift, having been moved to the West a couple of years ago, and then kind of witnessing firsthand that this is a possibility of why you could be be negated to be immersing yourself in the industry quicker than you would have thought you would, because you do have the credentials, as you said, right? And the other part being the lack thereof interest. Would it be the lack of interest, or would it be the lack of knowledge due to representation, right, of folks being within the industry? And for those who would be interested, what would be the advice that you give, Tadi, in terms of cybersecurity, or more specifically, actually, penetration testing for those who would be actually interested?
I don't know if I can attribute this to like a culture thing, but um, people just don't like what I do. Like you said, penetration testing. In my real life, I've traveled a lot. I've been to a bunch of different schools because of my parents. I've lived in a couple of different countries, so I know quite a bit of people. I only have one friend who's interested in cybersecurity and specifically hacking. So I'm not too sure if it's a culture thing where our cultures push people towards different industries. I do know that growing up, my parents always like either doctor or engineer, and at some point I did want to be an engineer. I think my dad was living vicariously through me because he wanted to be an engineer, but he ended up being an accountant. So he was pushing me in that direction. But eventually, I found out that I liked looking at code. Man, I wanted to be a software engineer for a while, but then I found cybersecurity because I was building very terrible applications that were insecure. So one of my teachers was like, you need to fix this, otherwise you're going to get the whole school hacked. And then that's how I found cybersecurity. But yeah, I think it would be more towards like a culture shift where we actually give people the options, not just push them in a specific direction, the traditional direction of, oh, go be an engineer, go be a doctor. There's a lot of things we could do nowadays. Penetration testing and hacking is one of those things we could push people to do various aspects in tech. I think tech in general, I would say people of color are interested in, but the more specific and niched down technical things people might not know about, maybe, and that's why they might not be interested in. But tying it back to the question, I would say the advice I would give would just be eliminate every other variable. Be as competent as you can, especially technically. In cybersecurity, one thing I've noticed is that people don't really care where you're from, what you look like, what you do in your spare time. They just want you to be able to do the work. They just want you to have the technical skills. And if you can demonstrate that, you'll have a great time. You enjoy the time in the space. Everyone is lovely. Everyone is helpful, sharing research and answering questions when you don't know what you're doing, because for the most part, you will not know what you're doing if you're facing like a new technology. So just being able to ask questions, be marketable, like I said before, and technical competency is key, to be honest.
That's
But at
awesome.
the end of the day, just making the options available and not just pushing people towards, the traditional stuff.
Yeah, we have Paul here saying a career in cybersecurity is impressive and more important than ever. It keeps business, people, and economy safe. So, well, we thank you for your work there, Taddy, because you're contributing
Sure.
to it.
Yeah.
Just as we continue to speak on that, because there probably is a caveat here, Tinu, I'm going to come back to you. Is like, how are your feelings? Because in terms of more specifically, you are a CEO of Media Bonnet. So as with the CEO position, were there any challenges of you stepping into the CEO position as a Black woman?
That is a very complex and layered question because nothing is ever easy or nothing's a straight line. Um, I definitely did not know that I was going to become a CEO in 2023. So our company is actually founded by a white woman. 14 years ago, we are a local company, local to Halifax, local to Atlantic Canada. Our business is in Atlantic Canada. We do our best to support our community in what we do. So my path to marketing in this case was definitely not a very straightforward one. Or I took on the company based on trust from Rose Wagner. We used to be called Rose Wagner Media, and she was a mentor for many years. And someone who placed a trust in me and said, there is an opportunity for us to, to have this handover of leadership. Um, and that's in a short way, the crux of my journey to becoming a CEO as a title. But I want to go back to what Taddy was saying there in terms of being in tech and building your career in tech. This is not an easy industry. And I feel as though the recent interest in tech in the last 5 years started stemming from people going, well, here's a career where you could make as much as a doctor, or, it's a career where you can make a lot of money, but not talking about the details of what that career looks like, what you're actually doing, what the competencies look like. And that is the key part, because when you're really in a healthy, technology driven company, nobody cares what color you are. They care that you are a team member that they could rely on, right? And that you could do your piece. And there's a lot of people who want to have the mic and who want to be the voice of anything, and be that person looking out there. But it's hard to jostle for those roles if you don't have the competency. So it goes back to what Taddy was saying. A lot of people in our community think tech is boring. When you really talk about the real tasks, the real seats that we have, I've been told all my life, what are you doing? Starting from my first coding in school, my sister would say, why are you looking at that black screen? Let's go do something else. Like everyone, people think it's boring. If I really start talking about things that drive me, people go, why are you trying to solve that? What are you doing? So you got to go back to wanting to solve problems or wanting to build stuff. Do you see that kid was really good with their hands, good with their mind? How do we guide them and say technology is a career for you too? And so is mechanical engineering, and so is architecture. I think that's where our community needs to kind of shift so that we could have more CEOs, we can have more CTOs. We really build that funnel. So I just wanted to go back to that. When it comes to challenges of being a CEO or being a woman in tech, the one thing I wanted to bring up in this conversation was in reflection, preparing for this. I would love a world where you have a person of color join a company and they don't need to spend their first 30, 60, 90 days proving competency. And I think that that is what we currently have in the industry. Um, I have had many jobs, and the struggle of proving competency rather than getting the job done, of people going, why are you here? And are you competent? And forgetting that companies have a process. We had an HR person look through a person's resume. People have years of experience. People have achieved things in their previous roles, and that's the true reason why you hired them in a healthy organization. You didn't hire them just as a badge of honor. So let's bring in people, assume competency, reduce skepticism, let them get to work, and like everybody else, we all learn, we fail and learn, and we want to be in opportunities and in organizations that let us fail and learn without judgment. So there is an interaction there where I would say, as a leader of a team, I'm very conscious of that. I want people to come into my organization and feel like they are safe and they're able to fail and learn and not be judged by who they are or where they come from and excused by that or sidelined by that. So let's create healthy work cultures for people to come into. But as a person going into tech, remember, it's not going to be easy. I'm not going to hide that yet. You will spend months trying to determine competency in some cases and wow them. Wow your workplace, contribute, and remember that you're just like everybody else, and you're there because you love it and you're competent at it. So that's one thing I wanted to just pass on, Otni. I know I didn't answer your question necessarily on my journey, but it's too long to get into my journey.
It is, and you gave me like just a brief snippet of it, giving me understanding of it. And I also do want to point out the importance of everything that you actually just said, because what it seems like is that is basically the gap, right? In terms of like bridging the community with the tech industry. And so just allowing for people to just get to work really and truly and see how that transforms whatever it is that they're doing with the particular organization. But I think it's so important that you really drive the point of understanding that let's have, if we could have a world that we didn't have to, you're on probation and you're on probation because of your color and whatever the case may be, and foregoing actually looking at the work that you are producing for us, that would be the best world to live in. We will be getting into questions soon. I just want to go back to Martino there, hearing what Tinu said and as well as what Tadi said. What would be your experience with this particular gap and, with your re-immersion and all of these things? What would be basically like an advice or that you could give us for those who are as we're talking about this, or even changing their career into the tech sector? Any of your experiences that you could bring to the table, or things that you noticed and things that, as you noticed, were like, this is something that has got to change for this, statistic to become a much higher percentage in the tech industry?
In my experience, well, imposter syndrome. Dealing with that is a huge thing, and being again from our community, being a black man coming into an industry that I didn't see much representation growing up. It was, you're dealing with, am I really there? Am I really going to get there? And dealing with imposter syndrome when you actually get in there. So you're almost putting yourself on a probationary period. And so you also have to trust within yourself, trust that you know what you're doing, and communicate, talk to the people that you work with. Um, Personally, I had great support through my work and through guys from the Matrix Code and family that just told me, you know what you're doing, and just keeping on your same path. But when it comes to the raising the percentage, I mean, like Tadi said, a lot of people don't seem to be interested in certain things. So when it comes to that, you also have to think, well, is it because they're not seeing people like them that are in that industry, or is it because they're just not fully interested? So there's a lot of things that come into play when it comes to raising the percentage, but it's, you can see in within our communities, you'd see businesses that are just straight up construction or owning a store or anything. So you don't really see much entrepreneurship coming out of our communities within the tech industry. So as kids start to see entrepreneurs coming out of our communities, they'll see more, and you'll see more representation. You'll see more kids getting interested, more interest coming out of it. So it's it's a big, it's a big gap, or not gap, but it's a big issue, or not even an issue really. It's a huge thing to unpack, to say the least. It's there's a lot to it, so there's a lot of things that can go into one point when it comes to that.
Thank you so much. One thing I absolutely have picked up from these conversations that is really like, well, this is amazing to hear. Because I think because of the conversation we're having, but there is this other side where at this point, all three of you have mentioned it, and that is the support you have actually received within the tech industry as you guys have been working within the tech industry. Todd, you mentioned it with the organization that he works with. Tinu mentioned it, that there at some point, like, nobody actually cares as long as you are doing your job. And yourself, you just mentioned it, Martino, with the support you've also been receiving with Matrix Code. So it's also a very, very good thing to actually see that it's almost like tech industry is waiting for people to step into it. But obviously there has to be those pieces of your actual tech competence and ability to understand, communicate, and also obviously work hard, which is worldwide, that aspect of working hard and being knowledgeable in it. So I really, really like that aspect of knowing that the tech industry is a place where and people should not shy away from it, because it is waiting for you, really and truly, it seems, with what I'm hearing here in this conversation. Is that right, Tinu?
That is absolutely right, Otni. That is absolutely right. I've always found that a lot of the negatives get spoken out first, but we have to talk about the allies. So when you asked me about my journey to being a CEO, I would say, yeah, when it comes to challenges, skepticism is always my biggest challenge, even though I'm not an employee and I people. However, the allies come out, and you will find allies. And I'm someone who I feel lucky and blessed that when I started my career, I worked with some great leaders. And I try to model my experience and my journey based on the great experiences that I've had, rather than on the negative, right? They say go to places where you could learn rapidly, early when you're young, then move from a startup to a consultancy when you have a little bit of experience, and then the world's your oyster in the later years of your career. So I was lucky where I learned a lot in safe environments with with really highly technical people who were allies and showed up for me when it mattered. And I think it's important that people find that. The other piece that I wanted to mention is the democratization of the journey that's about to happen. Personally, as a woman, I see the changes in just we as women going on social media and decorating our homes. And now a lot of that content of just, building a beautiful home is women doing the work. You're seeing women hold hammers and build that cabinet, do that carpentry themselves. I think that what we're going to see with AI is the democratization of building things. So that we're going to see a shortening of that path with people who want to build, people who have the ideas, building without having to get through that journey of someone choosing you, crowning you, and saying, well, we're going to let you in or we're not going to let you in. It doesn't matter what people want to do or, what barriers people place or, individuals could say whatever they want about diversity, but it is going to happen where you're going to see diverse solutions come to play because people have the tools to build those solutions themselves. So that's what I'm excited about. And I think that there are allies out there. You've just got to look around and look at the tools and do it because you love it.
Thank you so much, Tinu. And Tadi, how do you feel about that, especially with the piece of like the AI tools and how that is becoming more and more apparent that people are now able to actually, merge into things that they would have thought they couldn't, but because of these easier ways to be able to do it, they are doing so. And what are your thoughts around that?
You're asking what are my thoughts around people being able to do things they weren't able to do before because of AI?
Yeah, because there's now a simplification to it, right? I can't imagine being for example, yourself being a pen tester, that AI would totally help them with the journey that you've been on, but there is going to be some sort of like simplicity for them to get to the destination that you are in through AI.
Yeah, sure. I think there's a good and a bad side to this.
Mhm.
Kind of like Timo was saying, people get to do things they weren't able to do before. In
Mhm.
general, that's a good thing, right? Getting instructions for building something or, whatever the case may be, that's a good thing on one aspect of it. But when it comes to trying to get into tech and cybersecurity, pen testing, to be specific, I think sure it could help you shorten the journey a little bit, but for the most part, it's making people, um, for lack of a better term, dumber. Um, there's people that are fast tracking their growth, but not necessarily learning anything. You know what I'm saying? People writing code with AI, people debugging with AI, people taking interviews with AI, right? Sure, you passed your interview, but now you have to do the work. Are you going to be able to do it? Not really. So there's a good side and a bad side. And for the most part, with penetration testing and cybersecurity, um, if you want to learn, I would say, yeah, utilize it for sure. You would be missing out if you don't, but don't don't use it to a point where you're not learning at all.
Yeah, don't sell yourself short in a sense. Yeah, that's good. That's amazing. I have Daniel here saying that's a nice point of view. I thought of opportunities to work with AI. Yeah, I mean it definitely is the direction we're going in, as Tinu said. We do have some comments here. Alira Rosemary said code is connection. So computers are like brains processing and linking information, but the real magic happens when human minds connect through code. The best innovations come from collaboration, where every line we write brings us closer, linking ideas and pushing the world forward. I gotta tell y'all, that that almost is like a poem. It's very beautiful as you're reading it and listening to it. Thanks so much for that comment there. Alira, we did have a question that did say, do you guys think AI is an important opportunity? It's promising for sure. And that was a question from Daniel, which I think has basically been answered here. So as Vimbai said in the beginning, please go ahead and ask your questions, put your comments in the chat. We are good and ready to receive them. And if you have any questions specifically toward any specific panelist, please feel free to do so. This is an open space, and hoping you will also be honorable and respectful as you ask your questions or put your comments as well in the chat. And then to keep it light, because Tina, you were speaking on, you had great leaders that you were learning from, and there's some sort of like mentorship there. How important, I guess this could be a question for you three, but I will start obviously with you, Tino, and then just add a little layer to it, asking you folks who your favorite role models would be in tech. So just the piece of like how important mentorship was to you, one, and then two, who would be your some of your Black role models within the tech industry. And Tino, you can just go ahead because you kind of sparked that question for me.
That was a good one. I had to think deeply, and then I remembered a person in tech that I was wowed by many years ago. And his name is Francois Locodono. I'm trying to pronounce it correctly. He's the CEO of F5,
Okay.
an applications delivery company. So they are they're a multinational. And Francois has led F5 for many years. And I know around COVID, he did sponsor quite a few Black in tech events, trying to get people together, very soft spoken, doing the hard work, doing the work in the background. So I just wanted to put it out there. There are CEOs, there are Black CEOs of global companies that people could, check out, follow, listen to, look at that path. The other person who really inspires me isn't necessarily in tech, but it's Melody Hobson. She's the CEO of Ariel Investments, which is a financial investment company in the States. I think in pop culture, she's known as the wife of Luke, George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars. But she is a smart woman who's doing the thing and has been doing it for many years. And there are role models out there. I will say for myself, it's very busy when you're doing the work. And I know that we need to be out there and, model, be good role models so that people, their youth behind us know that they're people doing the work, this is a path, etc. And it's not an excuse to say, it's a lot of work that we're doing out here, but I want people, if you ever wonder who's doing this, I bet you there's people of color in that field. Just dig a little deeper. Just because they're not up on the surface, dig a little deeper. You'll find so many people doing the work. So I just wanted to put it out there. Yeah.
That's perfect. Well, I'm definitely going to go and look up those folks that you spoke about, because I want to see it all. Martina, who would that be for you? A Black a role model in tech, and just even with the mentorship, how that basically helped you as you were getting yourself to where you are now?
Well, I never really knew of many Black people in the industry, so I didn't really have a role model getting into it. Um, right now, I could say that older, or not even an older cousin of mine, but a cousin of mine who was in the industry and kind of come from the same background as myself, has been a role model to push me forward. Uh, the people from Halifax probably would know him. His name's Chance Howe. I watched him. We had the same interests growing up, and then to see him make a career change and move into the industry kind of lifted a fire behind me to say, okay, I can do it too. So that's been amazing. When it comes to mentorship, though, mentorship has been great within my job. Actually, I have a couple different mentors, but then within the community, I'll have mentors as well. Two, three I've met through the Matrix Code. Uh, So and that's with every aspect of life, from the transition into the industry as well as doing the work, but then also making other, looking at other ways to do things, so to say.
That's awesome. And we see that I guess some of you folks are in here, Martino. There's so much shout out going on for Matrix Code. It's almost like, hey, represent. um, so it's so good to see. We have Jeremy in here who's like Matrix Code 100%. Dwayne is here. Shout out Matrix Code. And I do believe there's a link that we're just given as well by Rodney Small for the Matrix Code. So shout out to some of your people that are here. It's good support. That's awesome. And thank you so much for sharing. Tadi, over to you in terms of the question about who would be your Black role model in tech, or just the mentorship piece, and how that has basically helped your journey.
In terms of mentorship, getting into the industry, kind of like I said, cybersecurity, not many people are interested in it, but so I didn't really have a Black mentor, and I didn't really think about that in a sense. I kind of just wanted to learn what I wanted to learn, and I would be open to learning from anyone. But there is a guy I used to watch his videos on YouTube a lot, and he owns like a training company, very big. His name is Alexis. He's from Kenya, and when I found out he's from Kenya, I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Because the way that just the quality of his content, you would think his production is from a Western country at least. So just finding that out was pretty cool. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But in terms of mentorship, generally, like I said, I kind of learn from whoever I need to learn from, depending on what I want to learn. I'm not necessarily looking to go find a Black person. If they are Black, sure. If they are not, sure. I just want to learn the skill and move on. But it has been a big point of contention for me because I went to Afrotech last year, right? Thousands of professionals in tech and thousands of people that want to get into tech. Very few people in cybersecurity, even a smaller number of people into penetration testing. So I would say I'm on the path of wanting to become that as well, just because there hasn't been, as much as I've seen when it comes to that. So just a quick plug would be the fact that I'm working with a couple of my friends at Cyberwalks. They aren't necessarily pen testers. They are more so on the defensive side of cybersecurity, but it's still security. And we're kind of just building out something at least to have some representation. And if people want to learn from us, cool. If they want to learn from someone else, it's totally fine. But just having that opportunity to usher in people into tech and hopefully persuade them to become hackers as well, I think is one of the goals I do have right now. And yeah.
That is awesome. I really love that turnaround of like being able to learn and then return. So that is very, very good. And, kudos to you and your team for what it is that you're building. We have Teresa here who actually just said I had the opportunity to attend Women in Tech conference at Laurier. And a key point among all speakers was mentorship. And she was asking what suggestions could you recommend to us to find a mentor? So plug in. Taddy here is building something for you folks to be able to go and find a mentorship. But outside of that, I think what I'm hearing is a lot of the things that you have already done there, Teresa, in terms of like putting yourself in the spaces where you get to actually meet folks who are like-minded and have already walked the journey. And I liked Tadi's point because it's such a key point. Mentorship is such a key point. He's not out here necessarily sorting out Black mentors, but who is going to give you the information that is going to help you in your journey as you move. And if there is anybody who wants to add on to that, to how specifically one can find a mentor, please go ahead, whether it's Tinu Martino or what
I would.
yeah,
Oh,
go ahead.
sorry. I would say networking, going to things like Women in Tech conference, meeting people and just talking, see where they're at, what they know, and try, like Toddy said, getting things from anybody that is willing to teach you. and getting the information and knowing how to use it really. So it would be networking, finding conferences, going to uh, tech talks and things like that, just meeting people. Really, it's the best way to you'll find somebody that can teach you something that you don't know, and that you might even be able to teach them something with a different mindset.
That's perfect. Yeah. And just to key into that, whether it's ally mentorship and all-rounded ecosystem of the tech industry, Alira just said, I would say being an ally is about what you do. So you listen, you learn, and I'm losing it here. You listen, you learn, and support others in real ways. You speak up, you show up, and you make the space, which is basically the conversation that we are having here. Okay, I can already see some connections going off, which is great. We do have a notice from Digital Nova Scotia. So if there are people who would rather speak than type in the chat, please go ahead and raise your hand. And Wimbai will so graciously give you access to your audio. So we have here, let's just see, we have here a comment from Joe. Yay for Matrix Code. Okay, Matrix Code is in here, is in the room, and I love it for us. Yay for Matrix Code. I'm also a witness to the power of the program. Lovely. And expecting expansions over time. I love that for you, Joe. And by the way, let's get back to ATL, because is this Tech Talk? Is this Tech Talk? But ATL Secon? I don't know, but yes. And then we also have a comment here. We have the link that's already put up there, but Paul is also letting us know that Tech Talk Atlantic hosts a monthly tech event designed to connect industry leaders, professionals, and aspiring talent in a variety of tech domains. Our community-driven event is a game changer, offering a unique platform for networking, knowledge sharing, and business opportunities. So this is great. These are some other areas, folks, that you can tap into if you did not know them already, to be in these spaces and to be able to then find, share, network, and build on tech knowledge. Okay, let me see if I have any other questions here before we wrap up. Are there any organizations you believe are doing a great job in fostering diversity and inclusion? What do you think we could learn from them? Is there any takers for this one, panelists? I'll read the question again. Are there any organizations you believe are doing a great job in fostering diversity and inclusion? What do you think we could learn from them? I'll open up the floor, whoever would would want to take it.
I would say that I'll take that, and I'll just say we're here talking on Digital Nova Scotia's
Yep.
podium. So thank you to Digital Nova Scotia for being a champion for diversity and having conversation like this for Black History Month and at a critical time. We're all seeing Matrix Code. I've heard about the program, so but there's a lot of value in everyone calling it out. So I guess we should shout it out one more time.
Yeah.
Very critical, right? I do think that the struggle here is the assumption that there's always going to be opportunities that say, oh, this is particularly for people of color. That's not possible, right? We have to think about the resources and the availability for that conversation to happen. So it's like Taddy and Martino said, mentors are of all shapes, colors, sizes, history, background, all of it. My journey to being CEO of Media Bonnet is from a relationship with a mentor that I had for over 8 years. And it was in year 7 when I said, you know what? You're my mentor, right? And I said, can we formalize this relationship, right? And so I would say, like, when it comes to those organizations as well, I just say find safe spaces. You've been to an event, it's a safe space. There are people you like, there are people who, are respectful, sharing, open. That's the organization that's doing the right thing. And that's the room you want to be in. And those are the people you want to be talking to and sharing your goals for your career with.
That is awesome. Thank you so much, Tino. And with that, I do want to leave any space or time if there's anyone who has any more questions, or if there is anyone who has any more comments, please feel free to let us know, drop them in the chat, like we said. And it's been very good. Thank you so much for those who have been engaging and those who have just been here and listening to this conversation. I do want to take a moment now to just really thank our amazing panelists for the plethora of information that we have basically been given in today's panel. I think it was very much so insightful for me, especially with that piece of like understanding the openness of the tech industry, no matter what race, color you are. So as we wrap up today's discussion, I do want to take a moment to reflect on what we've covered. So we've heard, of course, about the challenges, we've heard about the barriers and realities of being Black in tech industry. But we also heard, like I said, about the resilience. Tino was speaking of the tech openness within the industry that all panelists have basically touched on. The passion we've heard just oozing out of all three of our lovely panelists, and just the undeniable talent that exists within our community already. So representation in tech isn't just about filling a quota, it's about unlocking the full potential of an industry. And it's safe to say, like, the panelists here and folks in the comments are basically showing that. And the question now is, where do we go from here? Because the conversation, we can't just have a conversation without action. So I'm hoping people will, within the chat and whoever was listening to this particular conversation, have had a different shift of way of thinking, and will actually incorporate some of the things that the panelists have said. To be tech competent, to actually be knowledgeable, to go in it, find your resilience, use your resilience, and actually go and make a difference. And let's kind of do away with, the imposter syndrome, because there are people just waiting to support you and the value that you are yet to bring. So I just want to say thank you so much, Tinu. Thank you so much, Martino. Thank you so much, Tadi. This was such a great conversation, and hoping we will definitely have more opportunity to be the change that we are talking about today. Thank you so much, folks. Let me see if we have any other comments here. Great insights, great panel. Thanks for sharing. Thank you, folks. Thank you all. Thank you for attending. And I think I'll leave the floor to Vimbai just to close us off.
Yeah, again, thank you so much, Otni, and thank you to our wonderful panelists for joining us today and for all that insight. Like I mentioned, we'll have a recording available if anyone just wants to watch this over again, or just share it with anyone else who they think this will be really helpful for. Otherwise, we'll end it here. Thank you so much, folks, and have a wonderful rest of your day.